The Coutts 4 in Canada were 4 men arrested on conspiracy charges. And today I have a writer and journalist who's been covering the story. Ray McGinnis, thank you so much for joining me. You've been following this story very closely. You're actually writing a book, and we're going to get into that about this. Tell me a bit about this article that you just wrote and what prompted you to write this.
Okay, so I have been writing about the Coutts 4. I'm here over in Vancouver on the West Coast, so some distance from southern Alberta. But I was prompted to write this recent article because there was some breaking news on the 6th of February at a Lethbridge courthouse. There were breaking developments where two of the 4 men accused of conspiracy to commit murder, which is part of what prompted the invocation of the Emergencies Act, the Crown dropped the charges of conspiracy. They dropped the charges of mischief, dropped the charges for one of the men, Chris Lysak, had a charge of uttering threats. That was also dropped. And both Chris Lysak and Jerry Morin are now free men who after 723 days behind bars, are now free to try and rebuild their lives. Both fathers, one electrician, one a lineman. So it's a story of, like, normally, like with Chris Lysak, he has the charge he pled guilty to is a charge of possession of a firearm, kind of illegal storage. The firearm in question is a firearm that he had legally purchased, which was legally registered. And normally, if you don't have your firearm properly, like locked behind a door or whatever, you would normally just get like a fine and maybe a warning of some sort. But you certainly wouldn't end up in custody for nearly 2 years. And that's what happened. So it's, that's 2 years he's lost, and his children lost 2 years of having their father around to help raise them. So it's, yeah.
Well, it's a really interesting story, and there's not a lot of information about it. I understand there's a publication ban, so anyone who's close enough, say in the courtroom, to witness this, they're not allowed to actually speak about this publicly. And it's a strange one because it was all drummed up based on fear, and the fear was of this conspiracy theory, and then of course the invocation of the Emergencies Act was based largely around this. And now to see these charges get dropped so abruptly right after ruling that the Emergencies Act was not justified.
There's some dynamics in the background to this. I mean, the particular proceedings of the 6th of February are not part of a publication ban, so we can read those in full. But Chris Lysak was relying on legal aid and had a lawyer in the legal aid system who's kind of a junior lawyer, as I understand it, who at times was even napping during the pretrial motions where there would be court appearances with his client, Chris Lysak, often on the cell phone. And when it came time after the prosecution making whatever remarks to the judge, this particular legal aid lawyer was not having any questions, although the other lawyers for the other 3 defendants were asking questions and making statements before the judge. So as a result of that, Chris Lysak, through friends of his, there was crowdfunding, and he got a top drawer lawyer named Daniel Song. And so this was on the 6th of February. This was Daniel Song's first appearance in the mix of these proceedings, and he brought forward a Section 8, I think, challenge to the charter violation, and regarding the Crown possibly illegally, with wiretaps or anyway, there was concerns about the legality of Crown and RCMP uh, collaboration. We won't know what that is. We may never, depending on how this continues to unfold. But whatever it was that Daniel Song said to the judge was enough to suddenly get the Crown to say, hey, we're going to back off those conspiracy to commit murder of police charges. And by the way, uttering threats charges, those are gone too. And so are the mischief charges. So the question for Canadians, it should be, what kind of a case did the Crown have from the start?
Yeah, and it's really concerning. It's concerning to live in a society where this can happen, and people can just be locked away for 2 years without their trial yet being, and no bail, not being afforded bail, because this is as we're watching other people who have committed or accused of committing pretty heinous things out on bail. These men were locked away. Now, one passage in your article I wanted to read here. Initially, Lysak and Morin had declined offers to admit guilt, but after 2 years, the strain of the whole ordeal led them to agree to coerced confession to new charges in order to survive. I wasn't aware that these were new charges that they're actually laying on them, and you say a very particular word there, coerced. In this whole situation, after 2 years of being in jail, if you're offered something, is that a legal confession at that point?
It's a legal confession. I've been sent some information. I'm going to verify this with a couple of other people, but I understand that about 90% of the plea deals of court cases are resolved with plea deals before they go to trial, and that a substantial amount can be as a result of people who are poor and working class, who don't have the resources to fight a criminal charge, and so they may plead to lesser charges. And the concern too is, here we had indictments on very serious charges around the 13th, 14th of February. And now the pleas to what these two men are guilty of on these lesser firearms charges were never part of the original charge for the arrest. So that's really odd. So, what was the case against them, and why would they end up pleading guilty to two brand new charges that nobody knew about?
It feels a lot like one of those situations where, like, we're just gonna stick them with something, make something stick, and what's the old adage? You find me the guy, I'll find you the crime. That sort of thing. Things that you'd normally hear about or be reported on from banana republics, not from a country like Canada, what we all expect our judicial system to be. And you had another thing to say about the judicial system in this article. A question you raised was, is all that's required to deny bail for those accused of serious crimes to argue that the release will undermine the confidence in the judicial system? What did you mean by that?
Well, I've learned that when it comes to denying bail, there are three. The first is the primary grounds for denying bail is that somebody is a flight risk. These men were not a flight risk. 3 of the 4 had children, and the other one of them had an aged mother, another an aged father. So they're family men. They're all gravel truck operator, lineman, electrician, so on. So they're very much part of the community, and so no. I've lost my train of thought.
Well,
Tell me again.
Yeah, the question of denying bail based on this will undermine the confidence of our system.
Yes, yeah. So they're not flight risks. So the primary grounds for denying bail is not really an issue. the secondary ground for bail is that they're like a danger to the public, that they're of doing violence. Uh, Although there was a scary photo of an RCMP cache of weapons, some of them leaning precariously on a table with an RCM cruiser behind them, and most of those weapons had nothing to do with the men at all. Jerry Morin was arrested after the cache of weapons was on display, but never mind. They were all unarmed when they were arrested, but it's partly the Crown thought, well, they're too dangerous to be released, but that was really dubious. So the tertiary grounds for denying bail is that to deny bail, or that to grant bail, will undermine confidence in the justice system. And that really is a lot of where this hangs in terms of the reason to deny bail, given they had no criminal histories, no history of violence of any kind, that they were all unarmed when they were, like Chris Carbert knew that both Tony Oleanic and Chris Lysick had been arrested around between 9 and 10 on the night of February 13th. And his response to that was to go to sleep. Like, he didn't say, okay, now it's time for me to overthrow the government and run out into the street of Coutts and start shooting police officers. He went to bed. So, and Jerry Morin the next day, he was driving west of Calgary on the way to a rancher near Prejudice to do some a contract electrical work, I'm guessing, on a barn, which is not what you think a person would be doing if they're supposed to be trying to be involved in a plot to overthrow the government or to shoot police. He was nowhere near Coutts at the time he was even arrested. So, but if you lay serious charges against people, it seems that then if they're released on the most serious charges like these, that it will, in the view of the government and the courts, undermine confidence in the judiciary, because of course it may raise questions about, well, what is the Crown's case at all? And now it seems to be unraveling.
Well, this is, if anything, it's already caused undermining of the confidence of the judicial system in Canada because of this, and also because there's still two men behind bars in this case. I'm not sure what happened. Is it because they didn't take a plea deal, or were they not offered that?
Tony Oleanic had, I think, fired his previous legal counsel back, I think, in December. And so for a while, he was actually saying he was going to proceed as, just representing himself. But more recently, he got a brand new lawyer. And that brand new lawyer is so brand new to the whole case that they were not in a position to represent their clients, as I understand it, on the 6th of February, which is why there will be a court appearance on the 20th of February where both Chris Carbert and Tony Oleanic will be appearing to see what happens now. Because what is the case? The original statements by the RCMP and the Crown to the press back in February of 2022 were, well, there's these four guys, and not only that, but there's some big bosses somewhere in some other provinces, maybe Ontario or Saskatchewan somewhere, who are pulling the strings, who are also even behind the plot, and these guys are their foot soldiers. Well, there's nobody who's been arrested or charged or even interviewed about their possible complicity in this Coutts conspiracy since that. I mean, people may think of Jeremy McKenzie in Diagolon. Jeremy McKenzie's never received a phone call or an interview or a knock on the door from the RCMP about anything to do with Coutts. And so what are we left with now with these two men who remain in custody? Is it now a case of the Coutts too, that these two men conspired to murder police officers, and the two of them thought, well, there's only 100 police officers down here at the Coutts blockade, and there's two of us. I'm sure it'll be a good shootout, like the gunfight at the OK Corral or something. I mean, it's just preposterous.
It is. It really is. And these they talk about conspiracy theories all the time, and this seems like the most grandiose conspiracy theories of all. These men who, just tradesmen, got together with this grand thing that they're going to take out police officers in Canada, and it really is all falling apart. And two of them are still in jail over it.
Yeah, and one of the sad things about this is that I think that uh, when when many citizens are disconnected, I mean, many of the people who are most supportive of the government's action are the laptop class, the people. I mean, people like me who have sat behind computers and write books, or I teach writing workshops in the past, and and I'm very well. My dad was a dentist. I'm very well familiar with the professional classes and the managerial classes, the middle to upper middle classes, and I'll tell you an anecdote. My mother, my mom and dad moved into the kind of Caristell, Shaughnessy border area, kind of a well-to-do, upwardly mobile area back when I was a 4-year-old. And my mom and dad painted all the rooms and put the wallpaper on themselves. And there was a neighbor who came over one day and knocked at the door, and mom let her in. And she, Mrs. Jessley, said to my mom, she was just really exhausted from all the painting over her home across the street. And so my mom took her to the kitchen and served her some tea and some cookies. And my mom was understanding, she'd painted, how, tiring can be back-breaking to paint the ceiling and so on. And Mrs. Jessley said, well, no, she wasn't exhausted from painting herself. She was exhausted from watching the painters paint the rooms in her home. So there are a certain core of people in our society who have no connection at all to the working classes. I mean, some laborer may come into your house and fix some pipes or do some electrical work, but it's an arm's length relationship. And so then when the media wants to demonize these four men and others, they can be portrayed in the scariest way, because after all, these people, I think it can be said, they didn't go to university, and like all the kind of things that the people that like that my parents grew up with, who socialized with, all of them have degrees and so on. And so it's like there's this working class out there that aren't so bright, portrayed that way, who haven't got the benefit of education to think bright thoughts and so on. And this all feeds into really a class prejudice against a lazy portrayal of people in the worst possible ways in this case, that I think that there needs to be a real repair and a real rethink on the part of our whole society, because we cannot carry on with people who have reached a certain station in life, who are managerial, professional, the CEOs and so on, and political elite, regarding a great number of people in our society that they depend on as cashiers and clerks and truck drivers and plumbers and carpenters and so on, as fodder for occasional scapegoating to help them, have their next exciting catastrophizing political drama.
Wow, that's really a lot to digest there, Ray. Yeah, absolutely. A type of bigotry that doesn't often get enough attention, I think, in our society is that of looking down at the working class. Wow, that really hit me right here with that one. Thank you so much, Ray, for joining me today. We're looking forward to your book coming out possibly in the spring here, and we'll have you on again. Thank you.
Okay, great to speak with you, Clyde. Bye.